Booth Dystopian Adventure is a game with a terrible and yet very descriptive name. It falls into the genre of puzzle simulators, or what I like to call tedium games, where you follow a work task, where you must focus on details and then make choices that affect your character and the world around you. The probably best known games in this genre are Paper Please, but there are also games like Death and Taxes, Not Tonight, and Not for Broadcast, all of these being games that fit the genre, but all of them also bringing their own gimmick to the table. And Booth is no different in a sense. You will play Ned Crawford, newly hired food inspector in the nation of Iden. Now you're allowed to live up in the hanging booth of the skyline, which handles the inspection and distribution of all food in the nation of Iden. There in your cozy hanging cabin, you go through the daily routine of ordering food, keeping Ned fed, and working, which takes up most of your gameplay. Your job is, of course, to inspect the food, and in the basics, it's quite simple. In front of you, there is a conveyor belt, and it is either going to bring you batches of things to inspect at a time, or simply roll non-stop with items for you to inspect. And the inspection itself is all about making sure the things are not flawed in some way, based on often the arbitrary criteria on the work screen. Early on, you start with the simple task of weighing items and making sure they are the right color on the inside by using a little machine. Or you're simply observing them and making sure they don't appear wrong in some way. And of course, you also must let your superiors know if anything peculiar decides to roll across your conveyor belt. The workday is tedious and oppressive. Every mistake is counted against you. Every delayed item causes a deduction to your pay, and yet you cannot leave your conveyor belt until every item assigned to you has been properly inspected. And like with other games of this genre, things get more complicated the longer you play, as the game keeps on adding new rules and new ways to check the items. Soon enough you will find yourself checking for germs, filling bottles, stamping items, decontaminating items, and trying to decide if you should maybe steal an item or two off the conveyor belt. And each shift the work does change a bit. One shift you're making sure weight, color and germs aren't present. In the next one you might be filling bottles and decontaminating them. Or you might simply have a shift where you must put one stamp on a pig with dots and another one on pigs without dots. And while the work task can feel quite tedious, especially in the later part of the game, but the story is getting kinda interesting and I just wanted to move on to that instead of having to do my work, there is enough challenge in them to keep them interesting. And I found some of the final work tasks to be actually surprisingly challenging. Outside of work, you call for food delivery from one of the 3 restaurants, each delivered by a girl who has their own story, which is revealed the more often you order from the place. You get regularly visited by a merchant that allows you to buy a variety of items, from new music or decorations for your booth, to simpler things like lottery tickets or sweets. And throughout the game, you get to know Ned as a person, his history and the situation he and his family find themselves in, along with the entire country of Iden. And like with most of these games, you start getting the option of either staying loyal to the clearly corrupt government or standing up against them in the hope of something better happening to your nation. Your choices then lead up to one of several endings, including one special ending if you manage to find all of them and find a little clue in each one. Now your first playthrough requires you to work every day and take part in all of the dialogue, but in subsequent playthroughs you are given the option of automating dialogue and skipping work tasks, making it much simpler to go back and try different things, like focusing on making friends with another delivery girl, or fully changing some of the major choices in the game. I found the story itself to be quite interesting. I got invested in Ned's life, and I wanted to learn more about the people I met and how their and Ned's story would end. So in the end, I believe Booth Dystopian Adventure is a nice game with a bad name. If you enjoy games of this variety, you will probably like this one. But what do you think? Is Booth something you would be interested in playing? Or have you played it before? And if you did, what did you think about it? Let's talk about it down in the comments, though of course let's keep the spoilers to a minimum for those who haven't had a chance to try it out yet. And while you're down there, do the good YouTube stuff by liking and subscribing. And in the end, all I want to say is tack för att horva och jag yndislegan dag.